So, why do we integrate? Well, I look back at the integrations we've done over the last 10 years or so and tried to answer this question, and I came up with two main reasons why I think we integrate our software applications. Efficiency and data integrity, although I've just been reminded of a third, which is bringing in data from external sources for reporting reasons. Let's talk about efficiency. Now, if we imagine we've got third-party platforms that we're using in our business, we're either bringing data into our own infrastructure or software applications we use, or we're taking data out and moving that out to those third-party applications, then rather than the swivel chair approach of looking at application A and moving it over manually into application B, we want to seek to integrate that, move the data across with a software integration. But it's not just third-party applications. We also commonly want to move data around inside the applications we use within the business. So here we can see three software applications. We've got a CRM, we've got an ERP, and a finance system, and they all share some core information about our customers. And I've indicated that with the first name, last name, email address, company name. And obviously, moving this around manually can lead to data errors, but obviously it's hugely inefficient. And if we want to share additional information with these applications, we might have our customer service team. This is quite a common pattern, especially with SugarServe. We might have our customer service team using our CRM. They might need to answer questions about orders or shipments. They might have questions about the status of invoices or credit notes. And so integrating this additional information across from the ERP into the finance system into CRM is very useful and can increase the efficiency of the customer service team. It also means that you don't need to have customer service accounts on the ERP and the finance system. You can limit your, for security reasons and perhaps cost, you can limit the user accounts on those applications. And the other key reason, data integrity. So rather than moving data around on email, typing it in from one system to another with people sending leads in, possibly getting the name of people wrong, we all know we've seen that happen. We can see that integration solutions also transfer data in a consistent and a known way. So if there's anywhere you need to look to see where it may have gone wrong, you know where to look. And some data might have been provided to us directly by a customer. And if they've told us what their first name, last name, and email address is, we should probably trust it in our application as well, rather than typing it in from their email header. What about using a single system so we don't need to integrate? Well, the truth is that the single systems that cater for all business needs and across departments are rarely available. And even where single vendors do provide the applications for the departments, they commonly don't move the data around anyway. But other reasons might be that you want to choose the best in-breed piece of software for your departments, or the most competitively priced. You might want to avoid vendor lock-in. You might want to switch out your CRM for Sugar, for instance. And as I said, you can limit user accounts on each application for security and cost. So we talked about why we integrate. We're going to talk about how we integrate. So there are 6 key methods that, if I look back over those integrations, I can see that we've used commonly, and I'm just going to touch on those. File transfer is where you may have an export from system A and you read it in and import it into system B. You can either do this manually or with an integration tool like middleware. But there are some problems with this. Some of those are overcome with XML files, but spreadsheets and CSVs, they don't actually have a published standard, so we can't really build an integration against them. They can break in funny ways, and when they do break, it can take some time to find out that it's happened. They don't really report errors particularly well, because you might find data's in an unexpected field some weeks later, so they're not very robust. But on the plus side, if there's nothing else, it is usually possible to use this pattern. Ultimately, they do still need middleware, though. Database to database, it's where you plumb the data layer together. It's fast, but it's fragile and it's dangerous. You don't have any system auditing. And when you're putting information in at the data layer, you're not triggering any of the business logic in your application. So you can't trigger a workflow. So if a customer's order is, moves to accepted, you can't send them an email saying thank you because it's only known to the data layer. If you get a breakage, it can leave your applications in an inconsistent state if you're writing into a data layer. And of course, upgrades to the systems can change the underlying data schema, and then your integration breaks and you have to maintain that. It's quite an overhead. And of course, security is a concern because you're allowing access into your data layer. Internal API, we still use this. This is where we install a package into CRM like our Mautic integration, or Sugar use it for their Marketo integration, where you install the connector into the software and then it talks out to, say, the Marketo API or the Mautic API. It's fast on the application side, but there are some security concerns. If you're installing a package, you might want to audit it to check that it hasn't got any bugs or security holes in it. They are susceptible to breakages, and you're at the mercy of the package author for updates. But it is versatile. As I say, we still use this pattern. And finally, on the middleware side, API to API. Now, this is our preferred method. Each system has an API. You have for instance, Sugar Syria on one side, an ERP on the other. And each of these systems is responsible for the data you're plugging in. The API is a published standard. They're responsible for the data validation of the data going into their own system, so they can reject updates that are not sanitized properly. And they're very informative. They break in a consistent and published way, so we know when there are problems. So this is one of our favored integration mechanisms. There is one more. It's a publish and subscribe. What is a webhook? It's where we would subscribe to a webhook. I don't know if we know what webhooks are, but in essence, they're event-driven. So when something changes in a source application, it can push out an HTTP request to an interested application, which can then either go and fetch some data from that source system and then move it across into its own system, or it can consume the webhook in its entirety and then just update the system. They're very quick. Commonly, it's only a matter of seconds, no more than a couple of minutes to update the target system. But there can be some problems where you get several events in a row. It can be difficult to know which one arrived first. So what about our own journey at Enable? Well, until a few years ago, most of our integrations used the package install mechanism where we placed the install into the Sugar application. But as more and more applications became API enabled, and Sugar introduced their own integrate endpoints, which allow us to upsert data, which is sending data into Sugar, and if it isn't there, it creates it, and if it is there, it updates it. Building API to API integrations became that much more attractive. So we started to look around for a robust middleware solution. So what did we try? You may have heard of Make.com, or certainly you would have heard of Zapier. We've tried both of those, and indeed we do still use Make.com, and they're superb for simple scenarios, integration scenarios, but they do get complicated very quickly, and the complexity seems to go up exponentially based on the requirements as well. Another problem is that you're writing, if you're doing any kind of string manipulation, you're writing an awful lot of code into a text area in a website. There isn't any versioning on this. It's too easy to accidentally delete it. And as you can see, it's a bit of a nightmare to get right in the first place. So we also tried Azure Data Factory from Microsoft. It's very capable at moving big data, and it's used very much in data warehousing. But when it comes to manipulating data on the way through, it has very limited features. And in fact, you have to drop down to writing quite a lot of code yourself in order to do even quite simple data manipulation. And if you're going to write Python, well, to do data manipulation, you might as well have your own platform you can do it on rather than writing it and uploading it into a third-party platform. So we looked at Apache Airflow. It's an open source application. It's very versatile. We can write reusable components and extend the core functionality of Airflow very easily. It's near complete. It comes with a whole suite of connectors. It has workflows built in, and the scheduling engine is really strong. Built-in error handling and retry mechanism, so we can configure how many times it will retry a failed integration. And the user interface is very informative, and in fact we can allow our customers to have a look and see how their integrations are progressing. We'll see a bit more of that in a minute. It's an open source application. It was created by Airbnb, and it was open sourced by Airbnb from the beginning, so it's got a great pedigree. It was available on Google Cloud Platform as well, and I think HP Enterprise as well host it in their Kubernetes clusters. And the key commercial contributor is Astronomer. They drive regular releases. They contribute an awful lot of code, so it's a very actively maintained project. You will have heard of Airbnb, I'm sure, and Apache was the world's most popular web server for about the last 15 years, but you may not have heard of Astronomer, although I understand their ex-CEO has been doing quite a lot of publicity this year. So, EnableFlow, as I said, it's a near complete solution. It comprises Airflow itself. So it allows us to build the workflows and transformations and then schedule them using the engine. But it's just it's a project on GitHub without the other bits and pieces. So we run our own infrastructure at Enable, and we run each instance in its own secure container. And it's hosted in a way that makes it redundant. So if the host server fails, it will fail over automatically. We've also built a webhook listener and router, which enables us to do integrations with systems that only have webhooks. And what else did we build? That's right, the providers. So it's although it comes with lots of providers, as I mentioned before, very few of them are actually used by our customers. So we've had to write our own. So far, the key ones we've written are, of course, Sugar CRM. We've written a provider for Epicor, Business Central, NetSuite, and Xero, and we also write new providers regularly as the need arises. And this software development that surrounds this solution just seamlessly integrates into our continuous integration platform. So here we can see a NetSuite integration for Acme widgets. All of the workflows are listed. We can see them. The next runtime, we can see the kind of success rate with the green circle and the amount of successful workflows. Here's a workflow view where you can see the most recent runs and what happened on them. And if we look at the flow, we can actually see the data flowing into the graph on each run to keep for debugging reasons and to make sure everything's working as designed. In our webhook engine, we can create webhooks. We monitor the webhooks as they come in and make sure that they run through our platform. And we can look at the data. We keep it for 24 hours for debugging. And as I said, versioning all of our solutions, we can actually roll out updates to, say, our core Epicor integration. We add a new field mapping, and it becomes available to anyone who's using our Epicor integration. We roll it out with our orchestration engine. We can monitor all of the system health with our standard monitoring package. We can see here the failure rate on all of the workflows here. We get notified as soon as any of those creeps up. And it's made us much more disciplined about how we write software integration solutions as a whole. This is the Epicor integration package that we can install into Sugar. The shipping addresses, payment terms, reps, sales orders, and so on, they're all Epicor entities which we bring into Sugar. And we can install this as a separate package and bootstrap a system for an Epicor integration very quickly in conjunction with our Airflow integration piece. So if we upgrade If we add a new field mapping, we can add it to Airflow, but we can also add it to our package and deploy the two as a piece. So because of the way the Airflow scheduler works, it means now that when we used to do a migration as a separate project, because we were installing a package that did the integration, now when we do a project, we can actually migrate the data with our solution as well. So we wind the clock back to 3-4 years back, and we can bring in all of the information from our connected system into Sugar as part of the initial deployment. Once it reaches the present day, it then just carries on running every 10 minutes or so. It opens up the possibility for some other integration patterns as well. We've got authenticated third-party system lookups. This is a neat pattern where in your CRM you might need to put prices against a quote, but you have really complicated pricing in your ERP system, from NetSuite or Epicor, for instance, and we can call out to that system with the customer and the part numbers, and we call out to Airflow. It makes an ongoing request out to the ERP, finds out what prices we should be charging the customer, brings them back, and we can update our quote in Sugar with that information. So we don't have to maintain complex pricing information inside Sugar, for instance. We can call out to other services as data's flowing in. So if we're pulling in information about a lead, for instance, from like a webhook from a website, we can ask a geo platform for some geo data about that lead on its way into Sugar. And then taking data out of a system, maybe a nightly routine to go and add credit check information onto your accounts. All of this is possible now with the way that we integrate. So that's basically our integration journey. How do you integrate? Do you have any questions about integration generally? Yes, David?
Sorry, I'm just going to ask, why do you think Sugar is a good platform to integrate? What's so good about it?
There are a couple of really key reasons, I think, why Sugar is a great platform to integrate with. One is that you can add custom entities into Sugar and they immediately become what we call first-class citizens in the suite of modules that come as core. So they're immediately available over the API. And the schema of Sugar is consistent and the REST API is consistent, so we don't have to do anything differently for these custom entities than we do for the core ones on the integration middleware. And it's, the REST API is superb. I mean, it allows us to pull out data based on date modified, which is surprisingly hard, it seems. We found out over the last 5 years or so. And anything you can do in the Sugar application, you can do over its API. So we can automate pretty much everything on the Sugar system via its own API. That's a dry old topic, I know. You do.
And what else do we do, John? Oh, we've got 8x8 integration.
Yes.
Product catalog from NetSuite. Stock levels.
Yeah.
And it timestamps so that the sales team can't argue that they check the stock first or they sold the stock first or that jazz.
Yeah, so that's the pattern before about being able to call out. That's very useful for systems, people who are using ERPs, because so much information is normally held about prices. And stock on the ERP, trying to maintain stock in Sugar is an awful lot of work. So being able to ask NetSuite at the point in time, how much stock we've got for a product is much easier than maintaining it inside the CRM. But yes, two-way sync, that's always fun. So we have a loop protection, so we don't keep telling each system of an update that happened in the other. But it's possible, and it works well, I think, for your integration. Yeah.
Lots more stuff that come up, John.
It does a lot, yeah. It's your inventory, all of your inventory is synced into Sugar, but the prices, we leave that to the ERP. which is a nice pattern to use, actually. Yeah. Well, I think if that's all we've got on integrations, then I'm going to be available for a few more minutes. So, David. What can't you integrate into Sugar?
Yes. What have you tried and failed at?
John, I tell you what we struggled with, and it wasn't Sugar's fault, it was NetSuite's fault because their addresses were out of date. Remember the postcode and the
That's
county change?
a good story. Yeah. The
So,
NetSuite county list for the UK is, I think it's the same one that was used in about 1978 or something. So a lot of the modern counties aren't available in NetSuite. So when Sugar was putting in the modern counties, I think we got an address lookup, Google Places lookup. So Google thinks that it's Dunbartonshire or something, and NetSuite doesn't agree. So that caused a bit of pain. I think we had to leave it out in the end. Some of it. Yeah. What else can't we integrate? Well, systems that don't tell us when something's changed. I mean, if you imagine you're using a system that's got 5 years worth of orders in it, we don't want to be fetching all 5 years of orders every 10 minutes just because we can't find out when the last order was added to that pile. And it can cause an awful lot of pain trying to work out when things are modified. And it really is quite surprising to us just how many systems don't let us find this out over their own APIs. So trying to integrate those systems is a real challenge. Yeah, it's an ongoing thing.
What system is your biggest challenge to communicate with? Just out of interest.
Be careful how I tread here. I think rather than name it, I think any systems which are, where they were designed more than about 10 years ago, I think, and they didn't see this new world where we wanted to integrate everything together, because that's making everything a component is, well, it's quite recent. It's not that recent, but it certainly postdates some of the software that was built back in the day.
If you were to throw another ball at the tin to still remain on the shelf, what's your most difficult one?
Well, there are two.
Just out of interest.
We're going for the award this year. There's a legacy. Well, it's not it's still used, but I think Dimensions from Access is a challenge. And there are a couple. I can't remember their names. I'm sorry. I think you might have one in mind, though.
Yeah, I do. You can have one more ball to throw.
Yeah, so one of the things that was just mentioned before I started talking was about telephony integration. Now, that's an interesting one. It doesn't fit into quite the same patterns because it's not about efficiency or data integrity, but it is about bringing information into a system where everyone can see what's happening without having to do any work. And I think that's kind of at the heart of what we tried to do in the development team, is we tried to give as rich an experience in the CRM application as possible, the most data and the most reporting in your CRM with the least amount of work. I mean, if software is doing this somewhere and we can listen to it or bring it in automatically, then I think we should, because it really does help everyone use the CRM, and it helps with user adoption and reporting.
I had a question.
Oh, right.
Fabric was actually the Azure stuff, or did it come too late to the party?
Fabric, yeah, I think it might have come. We looked at Azure Databricks, but we didn't look at Fabric. But we found Airflow probably in the gap, and it's been a revelation for us because it comes with so much built in.
Yeah, I think that's what Fabric is for us, because my team moved data around the entire charity, and found Fabric to be really good. But we're now having to go back through our Databricks stuff and improve it to Fabric, and then
I see. Yeah.
it's just better and easy to maintain.
Yes, because it's hard to version control code that you're writing into someone else's software application. Yeah, so it's great for us to be able to version everything that we do, and to build components that we can reuse. So every provider we build, it opens up a whole new lot of customers for us, and a quick integration for them, we hope.
Yeah, I mean, we have the same thing. So now we've got Sugar going into our data hub for this intents and purposes. it means we can start moving sugar across the trust in different ways because we've made that connector, so we don't have to do that bit, we can just do this bit now because that will always stay the same every time we make it.
Yeah, I'd be interested to know, there's a lot of talk about a customer data platform over the last couple of years, about how many people view their Sugar CRM as that customer data platform, and if indeed you do as well, Roy, or whether...
Yeah, it's interesting because I think we tune modes sometimes because I work for the Canal and River Trust, a big massive charity, loads of stuff going on, and so Sugar does quite a lot of our stuff, but we do have a HR system over here and various other bits going on down this side as well. And we are getting to a point of Sugar being one bit that we put in, and then we pull stuff out of our data and put that into Sugar where we need the users of Sugar to see quite a lot of our data.
Yeah.
There's also the data that we don't necessarily service to Sugar that has nothing to do with the users using Sugar, it's just the data inside the system. But it does allow us, because we've got that connection from our hub into there, we can start bringing boats and, you know, all that sort of licensing stuff inside our system because we've already got that connector, just update the connector and notes.
Yeah, because it's a challenge to know where you have multiple systems, you want your users to log into a portal, you want them to log into other applications with a single sign-on, but a lot of the other information about that contact or customer is held in another application, but you need to keep those two things in sync. And how much data do you need to share between those systems? Yeah. Halfway between, yeah. So we find Sugar performs that role quite often in businesses, but there's a point at which other applications will come to the fore.
Question. How do you feel AI is going to help with integrations?
Well, I was just joking with James that he did a talk about AI, but didn't mention that software developers use it an awful lot. I think it will help with that. One of the things we found in the development team is that it can help get you up and running. It's a great tool for getting you up and running. You still need to know what you're doing, but it can speed up your first integration piece, like the mappings and so on. It knows about, we've used it to help tell us about fields on applications like NetSuite and so on. We can say, can you tell us what fields are on this entity? And 90% of the time it gets them right. So it does speed up our work in the development team. From an integration point of view, though, if you're talking about the data itself, I could see it being used on that last slide about augmenting information we already have, pulling it out and then asking AI to give us some sort of summarization of information, which is what Sugar are doing in essence. But it would open up using different services to do that and then bring that data back into Sugar. Possibly like with call transcripts and so on to summarize that, bubble that information up.
It's quite useful to fix code errors as well. So if something's coming back saying this error in this code and doesn't give you any clues about why, you can ask AI kind of what's happening here.
Yes, it's very good for debugging. Yeah.
I find that it's dependent on the language.
Yeah.
It's really good at Python, it's really good at .NET, it's really good at some of the other popular languages. But I have had some spurious ones where it says, use this function, and you go, no, that doesn't exist, try again.
Yeah, it does get it right eventually, though, normally. Yeah, you might have to ask it a couple of times. Okay. Well, on that note, Emily, you said you'd be here. Thank you.